Welcome to my very first review of a WWE pay-per-view, and it of course is going to be about the Royal Rumble 2019. Now, since this is my first review of a WWE pay-per-view, I have my notes out, and it's going to be in several parts. That way it will be easier for me, and I can take a break, and a 15-minute video won't take 2 hours to upload onto YouTube. And so, of course, I'm going to start out with the SmackDown Women's Championship match, which was Asuka versus Becky Lynch. And, of course, the action in it was good, which, I'd expect nothing less from these two ladies, given who they are. Uh, Now, I do believe Becky has owned her spot in the main event of WrestleMania. I just think it's kind of sad that some people wanted her to go over Asuka because if especially after the build up for TLC when uh, they were looking for a challenger and uh, they got to Asuka and the entire crowd cheered like that's what gave her momentum back. It's the reason that she became champion again is because they realized the fans actually like Asuka. We want better for her. Although I'm surprised that it wasn't at Survivor Series when the WWE realized this after Nia Jax pinned her and everyone was shouting BS. Or at least I feel like it took them a little longer than it should have to capitalize on that. But for what it's worth, it's good. Asuka got her chance at TLC, and it's great that she won the championship there. And it's just amazing that she's being allowed to hold on to the championship because a lot of people thought Becky was going to beat her, and that would put her in the main event of WrestleMania. And I just really think it's sad that a lot of people were hoping that would happen. Like I said, I want Becky to be in the main event. I just don't think it needs to be at Asuka's expense. There's two women's championships, and Becky could, as she did, go after Wanda and the Raw Women's Championship. If now, if staying on this topic, you need Asuka to win this match because you need a legitimate champion. Otherwise, if Asuka doesn't have legitimacy as a champion, then the SmackDown Women's Championship won't have legitimacy, and then the WWE is always going to keep turning to Charlotte to give it legitimacy back. And I think at least a good portion of the WWE universe is tired of seeing Charlotte as champion. We want these other new stars to have a go in the main event scene. And so it's Asuka's turn now. She's sharing the spotlight with Becky and Wanda, and whoever faces Asuka, probably Charlotte, they're all going to benefit from it. And then once this WrestleMania season is said and done, we can get a move on, and we can bring other women in to give them their tone in the spotlight. Now, for Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks, they had a really good match. Like I said with the Becky and Asuka thing, I'm not expecting anything less than a good match from Wanda and Sasha. They are in that upper pedestal of the women's division. They are two of the most famous WWE women's superstars, and they are held in such high regards that expecting a bad match or thinking they're going to botch things up is just a ludicrous idea. They might botch a couple things here and there, but overall I expect them to have a really good match every time they go out there with each other. Now, there was one thing I don't get about this match, and that's when Sasha, she decided to try and submit Wanda by using her strap, the strap to her top, and she had it around Wanda's face, and the referee is just looking right at them, and he's not disqualifying Sasha, even though she's clearly using a weapon. It doesn't matter if it's her clothing, she's using her clothing as a weapon. I could easily take my shirt off and wrap it around some guy's neck and try to choke him to death. Clothes can be used as weapons, please don't use them as weapons. And she should be disqualified for that. However, she wasn't, and it just confused me. Now, another thing I'll say is I'm not really liking how women's matches, more often than not, always end in submission. Like, someone always has to submit, it seems like. Like, more than 50% of the time, a women's match ends in submission. And I don't get it. Like, submission finishes makes the loser look weak. And we don't always need to do that. I would like a more even playing field with all the women in WWE, and I would like to see them actually defeat each other by pinfall for once. And it just boggles my mind that they never get to show off their normal finishers and build credibility up for those, because they never go with pinfalls. I mean, okay, they do, just not as often as submissions, and it just gets annoying. Like, I want the women to have more pinfall outcomes, just like with the men, I want them to have more submission outcomes, because it seems like it's like we don't have a balance for either side there. Which, it made me happy to see Ronda Rousey actually use, I believe she calls it the Piper Pit, where she has her opponent on her back and then she like spins them and brings them crashing down onto the mat, and she actually won it like that. I was so happy that it was a pinfall, even though it seemed to have come out of nowhere. I was so happy, and that just boosted this match above the SmackDown Women's Championship for me. After the match, they were really keeping the cameras on Sasha as she was walking backstage, and she looked disappointed, which, okay, I get that. But she kept going back to Ronda, like she shook her hand, and then like she did this, I believe, like she held both fingers up, and everyone's saying that's gonna be that's a signal that the full host women of the UFC are coming in, which I would have no problem with that. The only thing I'm afraid of is that WWE, they really want to keep things so legitimate that usually when it comes to the biggest stars from the UFC, Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey, they always get they are always given the prizes. Basically, they're always the victors, and the spoils go to them because of their history in UFC. When really, the wrestlers, the people who have been training for wrestling all their life, they are kind of put on the back burner, and they don't get to reap the rewards as much as the UFC people. And I'm not saying anything about the UFC guys. I want there to be a balance. Just like with the men and the women, I want there to be a balance where the wrestlers will sometimes go over the UFC guys. That way, it builds tension, and things will not be as predictable. I get you can't do it with Brock Lesnar because he's just become so much of a monster. But after Wanda's championship run with this is done, and especially since I hear she's leaving the company for a little while to start a family, have the wrestlers start getting built up to where once Wanda comes in, and once the full host women from the UFC come in, if that is where we're going, then it will seem like either side can win. And like I said, this will be a multi-part review video I will see you guys in part 2.